Hey guys, welcome to the live stream TV here. We are the Legion After Show, and we are psyched and ready to go. I'm Ray Holdridge. I'm going to be hosting here tonight, so we're going to have a good time. I'm excited. Yeah. Oh, definitely. So here I have my co-host with me, starting with Dallas James. Say hi to everybody, bud.
Hi guys, I'm Dallas James. You can catch me on Twitter, Dallas James ACT. Super great show tonight. I'm really happy about it and can't wait.
And of course, I have my very lovely, very high energy, Sabina Ibarra.
Hey guys, I'm so excited to be here because Legion has been insane every week, and I'm just like brain vomit. Let's get it rolling. Let's just break into this.
No, exactly. We got left on such a cliffhanger last week. So let's just dive right into this episode. Let's just get into it. Opens up. We got therapy sessions.
Yes.
I've never been so psyched for therapy sessions, ever. So opens up, and we have, starting with Bird, we have Lenny playing the therapist and going through each one of the team talking about their personal issues. And I thought that was really great way. One, we learned some things about each of their fears, and that was very interesting, but also got to see that, okay, this is now the world they're trapped in. Each person seems to be stuck in this reality, and Lenny is sort of running the ship.
And totally gaslighting them, I would say, into believing the script that they're saying. I mean, I think there is an element of them telling her like a deep-seated experience, but also her kind of being like, that's why you're here, and that's why you're at Clockworks, and kind of making sure they're kept in check,
Yeah. Yeah, and we got to see a lot of the vulnerabilities of each one of the team. James, what did you think about that?
Oh, yeah, right, great. I mean, it just starts right off there. Dr. Bird's sitting there, and this frumpy old grandma coat. Her hair is kind of unkempt. She's twirled it into this rope almost of this like nervousness and uncertainty what she's doing. And she's telling Lenny that everything's fine. She doesn't really think she needs therapy. And Lenny's like, no, you're frozen in time. You're stuck. You need to move on, and yet at the same time, she's kind of like subliminally letting her know this is where you are,
right?
And this is where, honestly, I'm keeping you.
Yeah.
In the way she's doing it.
And it definitely seemed like, and I don't know about you guys, but it seemed to me that what she was attacking seemed to be the thing that they held on to reality with. I mean, right, and with Bird, with her husband, Oliver, and hanging on to that love and what keeps her there, grounded and coming back. And with the Carries, them having each other, and how weird it was them being close. I thought it was interesting to have them outside of each other, and at the whole time being side by side. What did you think about that?
I love the Carries. Like, they have like the best chemistry, and I just want them to be safe because they are my sweet cinnamon rolls. And but just seeing like how they grapple with being in this place together, but also like they almost seem like they want to go back into each other, but they can't quite figure it out,
Right. And they were so in sync with each other. When they were talking with Lenny during their conversation, they actually had the simultaneous head nods to one side, head bobs to the other side. They were finishing each other's sentences. They were just pushed up against each other. And the only time that they're not pushed up against each other was when they were opposite facing each other throughout almost the entire episode, which really showed the dynamic of that relationship.
Yeah.
Strong.
And I just love watching those two act together. I mean, I'm curious to see what kind of work those two had to do to get to that point, because they seem it seems very real that if they're not brother and sister, they're at least very close and very attached. And I really liked seeing that. The thing that got me most interested, I thought, was Ptolemy.
Yes.
And actually getting a little peek into his psyche. Now, we know in terms of the team, he's been the most, you could say, argumentative when it comes to David and his position in the team. And I thought it was really great to kind of see him in a vulnerable place. And in a way, he almost seemed happier, lighter when he was in his therapy session with Lenny. What did you guys think?
Very much so. I thought his delivery was playful with Lenny. He was basically telling her, I don't mind being stuck in the past, this one memory that I have. I go back to it. I think it's like I'm a time traveler, is what he says.
And like alluding to his ability, which I thought was interesting because what he's doing as a little kid is he has a piece of putty on old cartoons in the newspaper, and he's sticking it on there, which I'm pretty sure if he peeled it off, it's like an imprint of the comic. You
It
know?
was.
And
It's
I
a
think
total
that's kind
transfer.
of like, I think that's what he does with his ability is like he'll get a transfer of people's memories to like go in and explore.
Yeah.
And the great thing about Silly Putty was if you put it down on the comic and you push it really hard, you pull it off and you get that transfer, then you can meld it, mold it, pull it, and stretch people's faces, give them different expressions. You can really play with whatever it is that you had transferred onto that putty.
Yeah, I think just another great example of how these writers try to put multiple messages
Yeah.
and things that mean one thing, but it also means 3 or 4 different things. And finally, I want to talk about Walter. Walter's curious.
Oh,
it was
man.
very curious, very short, but you can tell that he was just ready to fight in his little session. I thought that was great. But now David seems very comfortable being there. He didn't seem to want to get out of it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. He even actually said the words. He said, I feel in control here during his session with Lenny. And then later on he says, now I have balance.
Right.
So whatever it is that's happening to him and his experience there, he's being made comfortable so that he doesn't want to go. And that's exactly where Lenny wants him.
Right. Doesn't want him fighting anything.
Actually, I'm going to go back really quick to your point about Walter. I don't think he was necessarily argumentative toward Lenny in a way, in that it kind of felt like Lenny tried to get at him to mess with him, but then he just messed with her back. Because from that point on, everyone else is still trying to like figure out what's going on in a way, but Walter just is running with it. And the other person who's running with it also is David, because he's like, I'm okay, I'm totally fine, and I have a balance. But I think that's because, usually he has all his voices in his head. I think they've all been separated, including the voices. I mean, the voices could even be just the people in Clockworks in this scenario.
Right. And I mean, let's face it, I think everybody wants to be made to feel comfortable in some way, shape, or form, right? I mean, who wouldn't want a life where it's like, hey, everything's cool, we're going to take care of you. And David seems really to enjoy that idea. It's like, yo, I'm getting better by the day, it's fine, that kind of thing. But it's a mirage, as we soon, not just us, the viewers, but Sydney actually starts to see. Right in the beginning, she starts to question whether or not something's real.
Right, exactly. And in Sydney's session with Lenny, she's not buying everything Lenny's putting down, and Lenny's not sure how to deal with that. She doesn't like the responses she's getting. And every time throughout, whenever Sid starts to question something or bring up something to someone else, boom, Lenny shows up to interrupt, stop that conversation, distract, deflect, and move things in the direction she wants it to go in.
Yeah, and I think that is such an interesting. I just love how Sydney's kind of become the enemy of Lenny, and there's this competition, it's seemingly, for the affections of David. I mean, in his own mind, even.
Yeah.
And Sydney has this ability to see through it. Now, we've talked about this a little bit before. We think maybe it has a lot to do with the fact that they did switch bodies, and that she did encompass, was inside his mind at one point.
And still has this really strong connection to that, because there are parts in the other episodes where she seems to be like drifting off into whatever David is going through and knows where he is, because they're still connected in that bond. And I think that Sydney is a place that Lenny can't reach. And so Lenny is trying to constantly thwart Sydney and Sydney finding out the truth.
Right. And one of those being finding a door, which there seems to be a light shining from it. And she approaches this door and she hears voices. And she knows that something's on the other side, but she doesn't open it. And she takes a step away. And sure enough, what ends up happening is we end up getting interrupted again.
Right. She's right there, and they show her from basically from almost the shoulder up. She's leaning into the door. She's hearing that noise from the outside. Is it a pounding or a rapping or something? And you almost get the impression that her hand is probably going for the doorknob. She's reaching for it, and then boom, she's interrupted.
Right.
You have to come out.
Now, was this the point where Amy shows up and totally gropes her, or was that after? That's what I'm trying to remember.
It was a little after.
I think it was a little after, yeah.
I'm trying to figure out Amy's role in this, and while that was happening, she seems to be, I don't know, is she being used by Lenny in some way to distract?
I think that they've alluded to the fact that David has the ability to take on people's just beings into his head, because like I said, like there was that incident from when he was younger where it's just a big group of people that are living in his head, which makes him like the Legion. I think that in that moment that he grabbed Sydney at the end of the last episode, everyone got brought in, but it was amplified because of him giving into Lenny.
Right.
So I think that makes sense, because I know we were talking about last week, like, oh, we didn't see Amy in the group, so we thought maybe she didn't go in with them.
But obviously it looks like she has been.
Right, she did, and she's actually taken on, like, she's taken on the big sister role, right? If anybody that grew up with an older sister, the older sister's kind of the Nurse Ratched, you know?
Okay.
And she's really taking that on really well. She's the one that pokes at David every chance that she can get. She makes him uncomfortable. She makes him not necessarily want to be there.
Right.
And she prevents him from eating the pie.
Yeah, she takes his pie
Which
away.
was one of the saddest / sweetest moments in it. You're just like, oh, poor David, and it's bummer no pie.
Right, he reacted just like a 7-year-old would if you were to take his pie away.
And that's a great point, I think, in what Amy symbolizes. It's not being content where you're at. That this place isn't all rainbows and sunshine and everything's great.
Although she is the rainbow, I think. I think that clue that we keep getting with like the song that she's a rainbow and then Rainbow Connection.
Right.
Something with Sydney. But
Right, but that was with Sydney, but
Yeah.
we're talking about Amy.
Yeah.
See, now, and Amy being in, like where you were saying, as the older sister, trying to get David to, hey, wake up, man. Well, there goes my pen.
There goes the pen.
Exactly. Wake up, time to get moving and get out of bed type of deal.
Exactly, and I think
Yeah.
that's really what her role is in there. It's just in the mix of where everything is, she has to be given that position in order to be effective.
Right.
So, and I
Now,
think
what do you
she's
think
doing it.
about some of the clues, though, also? So we had the door, and we also had the dreams.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the dreams and what they could have meant.
Well, we had several leading up before the dreams even. When Sydney comes back into what I'm going to call that main room, that circular room, that very first scene when she's looking around, there are the two Carries playing ping pong with each other, and there's no ping pong ball
No ping
at
pong
first.
ball.
We hear the sound, but there's actually no ball. And then later on, she comes over into the spit conversation. She's actually playing with Silly Putty in her hands, which was Tomney's whole thing, and with his memory.
Right.
These little signs and little clues that are like, these things don't necessarily match, they don't mix. Where did the Silly Putty come from? It just showed up, and it's there. There are a lot of little clues that some she's getting, some she's not.
Right, and you see hints, you see flashes, and actually it turns out the rest of the team has also been getting hints, more subtle and looks like in their dreams. And I love that scene where she comes up to them and starting with Tommy's or with the Carries and with Bird asks, "Hey, let's talk about these dreams for a second." And turns out, yeah, male Carrie's been having dreams, and it looks like female Carrie's been having dreams. And then they ask Bird, it's like, "Hey, Bird, what do you dream about?" Love. That's what we all want, right?
But it actually ties into what everyone's been seeing, I'm sure.
Right.
To her, just the man in the diving outfit.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's
It's
Carrie
her
with the
love,
K's visualization. Her dream, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, a diving bell suit. That's
Exactly.
from that book. Carrie with the Sea, his dream, the giant ice cube.
Right.
Whatever. It's all little pieces of the same puzzle that are fitting together.
And we find out the key that turns out that entire puzzle culminates to Oliver. Yes. And Oliver, it seems like, now we don't see Oliver right out, we don't actually see him, but we know with the suit, with the ice cube references, and the fact that Bird is dreaming about love and she knows that it's her husband, why not let it be? It turns out Oliver's been slowly trying to get to every single one and make contact with these people.
Yeah, which makes me really excited because who doesn't love Jermaine Clement?
Right?
I was like, I wonder if they're going to bring him back in any other, capacity, because we're like, well, he's stuck on the astral plane, but since now everyone needs to get out of the astral plane, he is there and working with them to pull them out, which should be really interesting. But, he gets to everyone. He gets to Sydney.
He gets to Carrie. So first thing he does is, it seems like the two Carries say goodnight, which again, I just love seeing, whatever it was in this episode, I love seeing them together. And so they separate. They can tell it's a little tense, them getting away from each other, which I also find interesting to be able to trap two minds which are essentially one body at one point. I mean, I find that to be really interesting, and I wonder why that might be why we see Walter's infatuation with one of the Carries. Yeah. That they might be one of the more difficult ones to control, essentially. You know, and we'll talk about a little bit in that, but we do see that. And then as soon as the male Carrie goes to bed, he starts to dream of the ice cube. And who shows up but the man in the suit, who we have to assume is Oliver. Right. And he ends up sort of walking away and falling with him. And then we don't see Carrie anymore. And Carrie's kind of gone from the hospital. And we wonder, okay, this looks like he entered the astral plane and therefore escaped whatever this little prison was that Lenny may have created.
Right, right. And then Carrie with the K wakes up. And she has to go look. She doesn't feel him there anymore.
Right.
She gets a knock on the wall, and she doesn't get a reply knock because their rooms are connected. So she goes around to look, and he's physically not there anymore.
And his bed's completely made as if he was never there.
And then Walter comes in and starts talking about like some big bad wolf stuff, and which actually I thought harkened back to the whole theme in the show about fairy tales and how they're either to scare you or to teach you empathy. And he's obviously just trying to like create fear within Carrie, and starts to just mess with her completely, which upset me. I was like, why? Why was there?
Right. And we start to believe that maybe it looks like Walter is now in cahoots with Lenny, who at this point has full control, it seems like, of David's mind, of this space. And we see a great example of that. And what I thought probably my favorite scene and one of my favorite moments of this episode certainly was that what you described was a Bond villain dance scene.
Yeah, right. No, it totally wasn't this crazy like Bond villain like montage celebration where you find out that it was them all along. Because she's doing like that sexy sauntering dance within all these places that David was being messed with throughout the season and all those scenes of his past, and she was like, I was always there, and it was amazing.
It was a great scene.
Yeah, and it was done so well. It was totally with the silhouette work, with the red lighting, with her just moving, like you said, from room to room, from place to place. And then at the end, when she gets through and she comes back into the hospital through that brown door and closes, and now she's here. So we kind of get the idea of what's behind that door is a huge part of David's mind.
Right, exactly. And she has the run of the place.
Yeah.
You know, and why? Because she's keeping David content and satisfied. I mean, even when Sydney comes to David and says, hey, something's wrong here, you know, and they love each other in this world too. That's what I think is obviously even more said. David seems to be getting everything he wants. He's happy, he's getting taken care of, he has this beautiful woman at his side, awesome. But when she starts to bring up, hey, there are issues, he doesn't even believe her.
Yeah, no, I thought that was interesting because he starts to be like, no, you know, I have this condition and you have your condition. Let's not aggravate it. Let's just play it cool. You know, if you start talking about all these things that you're thinking that is happening, you're going to get in trouble and get, you know, more medication. Like, he wants to keep everything like it is because I think Lenny is just creating a scenario where he is separated from all the voices in his head. He's, you know, he did that moment. He did his like act of saving Sydney, and maybe like, you know, what if some part of him is aware that if they snap back into reality, she dies, you know, like.
Well, I think it showed how much Lenny's influence has control over David, right? Because he's even convinced he has a different condition than what he has. And that her condition is completely different, which is why he doesn't want to aggravate her when she starts arguing with him about, no, that's not my condition. I'm here for this other thing. And he really tries to talk her down, tries to tell her about a memory about he had when she first came to the hospital, all in straps and everything, things that just never were.
No. In fact, it seemed like what they did was switch. They had him he was a manic depressant, which, happy, sad. Great scene. Love that moment. But then with her, it was like, no, she was seemingly a schizophrenic, that she saw things that weren't really there. And of course, with her saying, hey, I'm seeing a door. Hey, guys, are you having this dream? All these things are off. David's very slow to believe that because in his mind, it seems like it's been planted that she is known to see things.
Right. And it's almost as if he's trying to convince her,
right,
you're just seeing something that's not there.
Yeah, which I guess, again, shows that type of influence. Lenny has. Now, she takes those steps, and we talked a little bit about it earlier, about her trying to stop Sydney from revealing the truth. And one of these, and I thought was one of the most interesting and really creepy ways, is when Sydney's walking down the hallway and she finds this breathing wall with a hole in it.
It's bleeding.
Yeah, and the hole's bleeding. I mean, what did you guys think about that? That was really creepy to me.
Yeah, at first I thought, okay, there's this just bulge in the wall that's just kind of heaving
like a soft
in and
spot.
out, in and out. And then she touches it and it instantly starts to bleed. But then you see all these flashes of her memory.
Right.
She
Yeah,
starts
she
seeing
remembers.
things that happened. She sees Lenny in the wall. She sees all of these things that really, her memory just tumbles back to her. And then, boom, there's Lenny.
Yeah.
Standing right behind her, ready to stop it again.
In all her glory, which I wanted to say, just like she is a dangerous
owning
character.
it, yeah.
Oh, it's totally
So
owning
good.
it. And then she ends up putting these. I love the music, the music therapy, slams in our ears, and it's crickets that we're listening to.
Yeah.
Right, and it seems to put her in some sort of trance or something like that. It kind of just takes Sydney out of the equation, it looks like.
Yeah, totally, like, knocks her out, and it just goes to show that just I feel like Aubrey Plaza really deserves like an award because she's being allowed to own. She has such a range that I feel like in films haven't been quite as sort of honored in a way. She is just like everything she did in this episode and all season, just very chameleon-like. And so I hope that Emmys come knocking for her for sure. But yeah, no, it's just she's so good.
Oh, she was so good, and I loved how it came out even to the end. You know, we ramped up. So before we get to that, we talk about, so at this point now, Sydney's been kind of taken out of the equation, right? We've had Carrie, is it Carrie with a C?
Carrie with the C.
Carrie with a C has disappeared with who we assume is Oliver, right? And also Bird looks like has made contact. Bird made contact with Oliver as well through her dreams.
Right. She has this cute little moment where she's watering these little flowers and they pop up. There's a little headstone in the piece that she's doing there. Then she's got a cute little moment where she's alone in her room, and the suit, the bell diver suit, shows up on the other side of her wall. It's kind of transparent. She can see it. She puts her hand up against it. It's solid. It's there, and it just motions to her like, "Follow me." And she says, "Okay, I know what to do." And then suddenly the wall turns into like a memory foam mattress, and she just kind of pushes through, and boom, she goes through. Now she's in a hallway.
Exactly. And she's pulled away, and she ends up in what looks like real time, where we left in the previous episode. Everything is sort of frozen, but the bullets are slowly moving, but everyone's frozen with bullets going off, Sid hugging David, Amy on the floor, right? It's kind of chaotic, but then we see the diver, and we see the diver motioning to be quiet, but to look around.
Yeah.
Right? And Bird tries to move things. She tries to grab the bullet, can't grab the bullets.
She did everything literally that I was shouting in my head for her to do.
Right.
Because I was like, can she move the bullets? Can she move them? Oh my gosh.
Can't do anything.
But she like stood there and I was like, well, can she maybe take the bullets? I don't know.
She tried, couldn't happen, and then we end up seeing.
And then boom, the eyes open.
The eyes of Lenny in the wall.
That shot was so creepy, but great.
It was, and it's so deservedly so, and it dives right into, hey, now it's David and Lenny alone in this room, and they're having their next meeting, one-on-one.
Right.
And we got to see that. Now, big reveal at this point really is this is kind of looks like it comes to a head. We get confirmation that really Lenny is the big villain here.
It takes villain monologuing to a whole new level.
It was great.
Because usually we hate villains monologuing, but this was the best.
This was awesome. I think it was, agree with everybody. Aubrey Plaza was fantastic in this and really revealing what her whole plan was, Dallas. What did you think?
It was such a great analogy that she used about the fungus and the spores and the ants and how they plant in the head and convince the ant. Like they go into the brain and actually motivate the ant to move to a higher place so then they can populate and grow. Which is just a huge, amazing metaphor for everything that she's doing to to David.
Which really seems like that Lenny is this parasite, to speak. You know, we had debates going on in the last few episodes too. Like, is Lenny just another fraction of his mind? Is it a fraction of his mind, but then something else is taking control?
Is he the yellow-eyed demon?
Right.
You
Is
know?
it that? But I think we
got confirmation.
We really have confirmation that Lenny is in fact the yellow-eyed demon, and that the yellow-eyed demon is something that was outside of David and came on and latched onto him even as a child.
Yes.
I mean, first of all, talking about how she knew David's father, who we all know is, at least in lore, comic X-Men lore, is Professor Xavier. Right. So that was a huge clue and hint of who he is and that sort of thing. What did you guys think about when that moment finally hit? It says, hey, I knew your dad. I've known you since the womb. What did you guys think?
It's a Shadow King.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no,
exactly.
totally.
And
It
was so spooky for me too. It was like just the idea of that, and then that reveal there. It's really it got me on pins and needles and just waiting for next week. And next week's episode, you know, because I really want to see what they're going to do with that information and where they're going to drive it to.
Right, because at this point it looks like David's still trapped. I mean,
Yeah,
he really is.
At that point, she basically says that, you know what, I tried doing this in a way where you also got a semblance of a life.
Right.
But keeping that up is too hard for me, so I'm just going to take you over completely and put you in this box. In his own brain, like buried,
which is terrifyingly similar in my mind. I thought was to Get Out, which I just saw the beginning too, and I was like, oh my gosh, like you're in your body, you can see everything that's going on, but you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Right. And part of her monologue include the idea of like, well, what if we work together? Our two, we could, and she even says something like, our powers together, we give God a run for our money,
which is true,
so powerful. And then later on, she's like, you know what? I just want you for your body. I don't even need your mind.
Yeah.
which again, I love so much. I think one of my favorite things was the fact how Aubrey was used in this episode was so good. I mean, before we'd seen her, it was hints of her. She'd show up, she'd crack a joke, or she'd be kind of weird. You know, the crazy Aubrey Plaza that we kind of see. He was like, oh, but
I was a little bummed
like
out in the beginning because I was like, are they just really going to kill her off? That sucks. And then they like morphed her into this terrifying villain. And I'm like, yes.
I really think she is crushing it as this. I mean, this was a great coming out. We saw more of her this episode than we think we have pretty much all season.
Yeah. I think so. I think so, and I really like this evil side of her.
Definitely.
You know? It comes from like a place of agency because like I feel that in some of her features, it's like objectified almost, but in this she's like, she owns her sexy, she owns her evil, she owns the dialogue, and just like is allowed to be like just her presence of being creepy and stuff, it just shines completely, like almost like in a Norman Bates sort of manner as well.
Yeah, there's a danger to her that we haven't seen that goes along with her kind of crazy that she's doing, where it's not so fun like, oh yeah, you'd be down to party with a crazy chick, but then you're like, but this one might stab me a little bit, and I don't know if I want to.
I think she stabbed you alive.
I think she stabbed me alive.
Yeah.
No, which is great. So let me ask you guys, where do you think this is going to take us into the next episode? You know, does it look like Lenny's going to keep that control? What do you guys think?
Well, I think she's going to try. And I think now that we've seen David has been like placed in this box, and then we see right there at the end Sid get woken up by Carrie with the C in the Belldiver suit. You know, I think we're going to see this almost battle for David's mind within his mind between Sid and Lenny, I hope. It's kind of where I'd like to see it go.
I would definitely like to see that.
Oh my gosh, I really don't want Sydney to die, but I have a bad feeling about this. So,
we do see at the end of the episode, we do see how Carrie with a C shows up, and it looks like saving Sid.
But I feel like they go back to that moment in time, though. I mean, will they just be pulled back into that moment right before, or will they be somewhere else? We won't find out for next
of getting
week,
shot,
you know?
of the bullets being frozen. Right, so that is a great question. So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, honestly. My brain's just like, I'm ready for this. So let's just go. I felt like a filler episode in that they decided to just explore all these characters and sort of like their different things and so what makes them them. But I think we're eventually just going to just the last 2 episodes are like the last 2 hours.
Yeah, they're definitely.
crazy.
It looks like they left some unanswered questions too. But guys, we're out of time. We're there. We're out of time now at this point, so we're gonna wrap it up. Just want to thank you so much for tuning in today's show. Hopefully, we talked about some things that may have surprised you, may have got you going, ready to debate. Because we know with this show there is so much to talk about,
Totally.
so much to debate about. I mean, I've been talking about these guys. We should just have a whole section where we just talk
Yeah,
about what the
totally.
heck things mean.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, and
right?
hit us up in the comments on the video, and we'll we'll look at the questions and respond next week if we get any.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, guys, thank you so much. Thank you to my co-host here with me on my first run with this show. I want to thank Dallas James. Go tell them where they can find you, bud.
Oh, thanks. You can find me up on Twitter, DallasJamesACT.
And, of course.
And you can find me on Twitter at Sabina has no R.
And I'm Ray Holdridge. You can find me on Twitter at RayDallas67. I did not steal that. I made that years ago, Dallas. Or also Instagram, Ray Holdridge with 2 Roman numerals. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We will see you next week.
Woo!